Alright, picture this. A rugged, square-jawed man in a leopard print tunic, club slung over his shoulder, looks out from his cave. His pet Tyrannosaurus Rex gives him a friendly roar, and he slides down its back to get into his foot-powered stone car to head off to the quarry for a hard day's work. It's a scene we all know. It's the Flintstones. It's familiar, it's comforting, and it is almost 100% completely and utterly wrong. For decades, our image of prehistoric people has been shaped not by archaeologists and paleontologists, but by cartoonists and movie directors. They've given us a caricature, a grunting, club-wielding, dinosaur-riding simpleton. And while it's great for a laugh, it has left us with a ton of myths that are just as persistent as they are ridiculous. Today, we're going on a myth-busting safari. We're going to track down 5 of the biggest misconceptions about our ancient ancestors, separate the facts from the fiction, and reveal a portrait of prehistoric people that is far more intelligent, complex, and fascinating than you could ever imagine. So grab your spear, leave your pet dinosaur at home, and let's get started. Let's kick things off with the biggest, most colossal myth of them all. The one that's in every bad movie and every classic cartoon. Myth number 1, humans and dinosaurs lived at the same time. We see it everywhere, from Raquel Welch battling an Allosaurus in 1 million years BC to Fred Flintstone using a Brontosaurus as a crane. The image of a caveman cowering before a mighty T-Rex is burned into our collective consciousness. It's a thrilling idea, the ultimate man versus monster showdown. There's just one tiny, insignificant little problem with this picture. The last non-avian dinosaurs, the big scaly guys like T-Rex and Triceratops, died out 66 million years ago, wiped out by a city-sized asteroid that slammed into the Earth and created a global cataclysm. The very earliest human ancestors, the first hominins to walk on 2 legs, didn't appear until around 6 to 7 million years ago in Africa. And modern humans, Homo sapiens like you and me, we only showed up around 300,000 years ago. Let me put that time gap into perspective for you, because 66 million years is a number so vast it's almost meaningless. If you were to represent the entire history of the Earth as a single calendar year, with the Big Bang happening at the stroke of midnight on January 1st, the dinosaurs would have been wiped out in the late evening of December 26th. All of recorded human history, the pyramids, the Roman Empire, the internet, everything would take place in the last 14 seconds before midnight on December 31st. You and the T-Rex didn't just miss each other by a few days. You are living on entirely different pages of the cosmic calendar. The world our prehistoric ancestors inhabited was not Jurassic Park. There were no raptors in the tall grass or a T-Rex roaring on the horizon. But that doesn't mean their world was safe. Oh, far from it. They lived in a world of giants, just not the scaly kind. Their monsters were the megafauna of the Ice Age. Instead of a T-Rex, they had to contend with the short-faced bear, a predator that was faster than a horse and could look you in the eye while standing on all fours. Instead of raptors, they were stalked by Smilodon, the saber-toothed cat, a 400-pound ambush predator with teeth like steak knives. And instead of a brontosaurus, they hunted the woolly mammoth, a 6-ton beast that could crush them without a second thought. So while they never had to worry about a dinosaur stepping on their hut, they had a whole host of other very real monsters to deal with. The idea of humans and dinosaurs coexisting is pure fantasy, a thrilling fiction created for our entertainment. The reality is a story of 2 completely different eras, separated by an almost unimaginable gulf of time. Now that brings us to myth number 2, which is perhaps even more insulting to our ancestors than giving them a pet dinosaur. This is the myth of the dumb caveman. You know the image, the slouched, knuckle-dragging posture, the low, sloping forehead and vacant expression. The primary tool for every situation is a big, clumsy club. This is the caveman as a brutish simpleton, a creature of instinct, barely more intelligent than the animals he hunted. He's often portrayed as a single step up from an ape, a clumsy oaf who communicates in grunts and struggles with the concept of, well, anything complex. This stereotype is so pervasive that the word Neanderthal is still used today as an insult for someone who is boorish, unintelligent, or primitive. But is this picture accurate? Was our ancestor really just a dumb brute? The scientific evidence screams a resounding no. In fact, the truth is that prehistoric people, including Neanderthals, were shockingly intelligent, resourceful, and creative. The dumb caveman stereotype isn't just wrong, it's the absolute polar opposite of the truth. These were the people who survived the Ice Age, who spread across every continent on Earth, and who laid the groundwork for everything that came after. And you don't accomplish that by being stupid. So how smart were they? The evidence is overwhelming, and it starts with the most obvious thing, the size of their brains.
Let's pick up right where we left off, with the myth of the dumb caveman. The first piece of evidence that shatters this stereotype is right inside their skulls. If you look at brain capacity, both early Homo sapiens and our famous cousins, the Neanderthals, had brains that were on average the same size as ours, or in the case of Neanderthals, even slightly larger. Now, brain size isn't a perfect measure of intelligence, but it tells us that they absolutely had the hardware for complex thought. They weren't operating with a primitive, underdeveloped brain. They had the same basic cognitive engine that we do today. But the real proof of their intelligence isn't the size of their brains, it's what they did with them. And that brings us to their technology. The Caveman Club is a joke. The real tools of the Stone Age were sophisticated, masterfully crafted, and incredibly versatile. Consider the Acheulean hand axe, a tool used for over 1 million years. This wasn't just a sharp rock, it was a teardrop-shaped, symmetrical, multi-purpose tool. It was the Swiss Army knife of the Stone Age, used for butchering animals, chopping wood, digging for roots, and scraping hides. To make one required a multi-step process, a deep understanding of how different types of stone fracture, and the ability to hold a three-dimensional model of the final product in your mind before you even started. That's not brute force, that's abstract thought and pre-planning. Later, species like the Neanderthals developed even more advanced techniques, like the Levallois technique, where they would meticulously prepare a stone core to strike off a single, perfectly shaped flake to use as a spear point or a knife. This is the Stone Age equivalent of precision engineering. Their intelligence is also blindingly obvious in their hunting strategies. They weren't just chasing animals around and hoping for the best. Archaeological evidence shows they were cunning, coordinated, and deeply knowledgeable about their environment and the behavior of their prey. They conducted large-scale, cooperative hunts, driving herds of bison or mammoths off cliffs or into natural traps. They understood seasonal migrations. There's even evidence for persistence hunting, where early humans with their bipedal stride and ability to sweat would literally run their prey to death over vast distances, a strategy that requires incredible endurance and tracking skills. This is the work of a calculating, strategic mind, not a grunting simpleton. But perhaps the most profound and beautiful evidence of their intelligence is their art. Deep within caves like Chauvet and Lascaux in France, our ancestors descended into total darkness, carrying nothing but torches, and painted breathtaking masterpieces on the walls. They painted galloping horses, charging bison, and majestic lions with a sense of movement and perspective that is stunning even today. They created bone flutes capable of playing complex melodies. They carved intricate Venus figurines. This isn't the work of someone just struggling to survive. This is the work of a mind capable of abstract thought, of symbolism, of spirituality, of seeing the world and wanting to capture its beauty and its power. This is the evidence of a rich inner world. So, the dumb caveman? A complete fiction. Our ancestors were brilliant innovators, master craftsmen, strategic hunters, and profound artists. This leads us directly to myth number 3. They all lived in caves. The very word we use, caveman, implies that a cave was the standard go-to housing option, We picture families huddled in dark, damp caverns, gnawing on bones around a fire. And yes, some prehistoric people did use caves. A cave is an excellent natural shelter. It's protected from the wind and rain, it maintains a relatively stable temperature, and it's defensible. Archaeological sites found in caves have been a treasure trove of information because they offer such good preservation. But here's the reality. Caves are a very specific and relatively rare geographical feature. You can't just find a cave whenever you need one, and many of the best caves were probably already occupied by things you really don't want as roommates, like giant cave bears or lions. So to think that every single prehistoric person lived in a cave is like thinking everyone today lives in a skyscraper. It was one option, but far from the only one. Our ancestors were nomadic or semi-nomadic, following the herds and the seasons. They needed shelters that were adaptable and in many cases portable. And they were brilliant architects. In the cold, open plains of Ice Age Ukraine, where there were no caves and very few trees, archaeologists have found the remains of incredible huts built from a framework of woolly mammoth bones, covered with animal hides. These were large, complex structures capable of housing an entire family. At a site called Mezerich, one such hut was constructed using the bones of at least 95 different mammoths. In other places, they would have built simple lean-tos and tents from branches, animal skins, and whatever materials were available. They were resourceful and adaptable builders, creating homes suited to their environment. Caves were more like prime real estate, great if you could find one vacant, but most people had to build their own homes. They were not just cavemen, they were the original architects, engineers, and home builders.
Now we arrive at myth number 4, the one that defines the caveman caricature in every cartoon, the way they talked, or rather, the way they didn't. The myth is that prehistoric people communicated with a series of grunts, groans, and the occasional eloquent Uga Buga. They're often shown pointing and gesturing wildly, their language a primitive, barely functional tool. This idea reinforces the dumb brute stereotype, suggesting a mind too simple for the complexities of grammar and vocabulary. Once again, the evidence tells a very different story. While we can never know for certain what their language sounded like, since there were no tape recorders in the Stone Age, the scientific consensus is that they almost certainly had complex spoken language. How do we know? First, we can look at their genetics. Scientists have identified a gene called FOXP2, which is crucial for the development of speech and language in modern humans. And when they analyzed Neanderthal DNA, they found that Neanderthals had the exact same version of the FOXP2 gene that we do. This strongly suggests they had the genetic wiring for language. Second, we can look at their anatomy. To produce the wide range of sounds necessary for modern speech, you need a specific vocal tract shape and a hyoid bone, a small U-shaped bone in the neck positioned in a certain way. Fossil discoveries of Neanderthal hyoid bones show that they are virtually identical to our own, indicating that physically they were capable of the same range of sounds as modern humans. Now, what would they talk about? Everything! They would have needed complex language to coordinate those sophisticated mammoth hunts we talked about. They would have needed it to teach their children how to knap flint and which plants were safe to eat. They would have told stories around the fire, passed down tribal histories, shared gossip, made jokes, and expressed love and grief. Language is the ultimate social glue, the tool that enables complex cooperation, and their entire way of life depended on it. The Uga Buga caveman is a complete fabrication. The reality is a world filled with the sound of human voices, speaking languages lost to time, but languages that were undoubtedly rich, nuanced, and fully human. Finally, we come to myth number 5, a particularly ugly and persistent stereotype, the image of a caveman grabbing a woman by the hair and dragging her back to his cave. This trope was especially popular in comics and movies from the mid-20th century. It paints a picture of prehistoric society as a brutal patriarchy, where men asserted dominance through brute force and women were passive, helpless property. This myth says more about the sexism of the 1950s when it became popular than it does about the actual Stone Age. Let's start with the practical absurdity of it.
From a purely logistical standpoint, dragging a person by their hair is an incredibly inefficient and frankly stupid way to move them. An unwilling person would be fighting, kicking, and screaming, and you'd have your hands full just trying to maintain your grip. It makes for a dramatic cartoon image, but in reality, it's completely impractical. But more importantly, this myth fundamentally misunderstands the social dynamics of a hunter-gatherer society. These were small, close-knit clans where cooperation was the key to survival. Every single member of the group had a vital role to play. While men may have done the bulk of the large-game hunting, women were not just sitting around waiting to be dragged somewhere. They were likely the primary gatherers, providing the majority of the tribe's daily calories from plants, nuts, and berries. They were the ones with the deep botanical knowledge. They were healers, tool makers, and the ones responsible for raising the next generation. The survival of the group depended on a partnership, on the combined contributions of everyone. A society based on the brutish dominance depicted in this myth would have quickly fallen apart. While we can't know the exact details of their social structures, and they likely varied from group to group, the idea that they were all based on violent, cartoonish male dominance is a projection of modern biases onto the past. The reality was likely far more complex, cooperative, and egalitarian. So there you have it. 5 of the biggest myths completely busted. Our ancestors did not ride dinosaurs. They were brilliant thinkers and artists, not dumb brutes. They were adaptable architects, not just cave dwellers. They filled their world with complex language, not just grunts. And their societies were built on cooperation, not caveman cliches. The picture that emerges when we strip away the myths is of a people who were intelligent, resilient, creative, and profoundly human. They were us, just in a different, far more challenging world. Understanding the truth about them isn't just about correcting the historical record, it's about giving our ancestors the respect they deserve and understanding the incredible journey that led to who we are today. So which of these myths did you used to believe? Be honest. Confess in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed busting these myths with us, be sure to hit that subscribe button for more adventures into our incredible past. Until next time, stay curious.